One morning, Edward was in the shed where he lived. The other engines in the shed were bigger than him, except for Thomas. "The controller won't pick you," said Gordon. "He wants to pick stronger engines like us." Edward's driver and fireman felt sorry for him. "Would you like to go out today?" said his driver. "Yes, please," said Edward. So his fireman hit him with coal, and he started to steam. And off Edward went. The other engines were jealous of Edward. Edward had a good day pulling coaches. The coaches liked him, and the coaches liked his driver and fireman. That night, Edward told the engines all about his day. "I'm going out tomorrow," said Edward. Only Henry was listening. James and Gordon were mad and jealous. The next morning, Edward found out that nothing had changed. Gordon was still boasting. "You watch me, little Edward," said Gordon. "You'll see me pull the express out of the station. That would be a splendid sight for you." Edward went to go shunt trucks again. Bang! Edward loved to shunt trucks. It was fun to bump them. Edward would come up quietly to the trucks and give them a push. Then the trucks would go bump into the other. "Oof," they said. "What in the world is happening?" Edward had a wonderful day shunting trucks. Edward played in the yard until there were no more trucks to shunt. After there were no more trucks to play with, Edward ran onto a siding for a rest. Presently, Edward heard a whistle. It was Gordon, but instead of pulling nice, shiny coaches, he was pulling dirty, smelly trucks. "A goods train! A goods train! A goods train! Oh, the shame of it," grumbled Gordon. Edward laughed, and he went to go find some more trucks. But then there was trouble. "Gordon stuck up the hill," said the porter. "We need you to help him get from the top to the bottom." "Yes, sir," said Edward, and he ran away to help Gordon up the hill. Edward found Gordon stuck up the hill. "Don't worry," said Edward. "I'll help you get up the hill." "It's no use," said Gordon. Gordon was arguing with his driver. "You're not trying," said his driver. "The trucks will hold an engine back, Of course I'm not trying, but if they were coaches, now they don't hold an engine back. Coaches are shiny, they are clean, but trucks are dirty and smelly, said Gordon. Edward's driver came up. We've come to help you, said Edward's driver. It's no use at all, said Gordon. Oh, you'll wait and see, said Edward's driver. Gordon's driver brought the train to the bottom of the hill. I'm ready, said Edward. Ugh, grumbled Gordon. The two engines slowly puffed up the hill. I think I can, I think I can, chanted Edward. I think I can't, I think I can't, grumbled Gordon. I think I can, I think I can, grumbled Edward. I think I can't, I think I can't, grumbled Gordon. We can do it, puffed Edward. We can't do it, said Gordon. Edward and Gordon finally made it up the hill. Gordon took off without a thank you. Beep, beep. Ta-ta, little Edward. And he sped away. Gordon, wait up. You forgot to say a thank you. Never mind that, said Edward's driver. I'll give you a new coat of paint tomorrow. Oh, thank you, driver. Edward went back to the sheds. There once was an engine attached to a train who was afraid of a few drops of rain. So he went through a tunnel, squeaked through its funnel, and never came out again. The engine's name was Henry. Henry's crew tried everything they could to get him out of the tunnel. The rain will spoil my lovely green paint and red stripes, said Henry. The guard blew his whistle until he was out of breath. The guard waved his flag until his arms ached. But still, Henry didn't move. All he did was wheeze steam at the guard. I'm not going to spoil my lovely green paint and red stripes for you, grumbled Henry. Then came along Sir Topham Hatt, the man in charge of the railway. If you won't get out of the tunnel, then we'll pull you out, said the fat controller. But Henry just blew steam at him. Everybody came out of their coaches and started to pull Henry, except for the fat controller. My doctor has forbidden me to pull, said the fat controller. Since Henry didn't move, they started to push. Except for Sir Topham Hatt. My doctor has forbidden me to push, he said. Pushing did not work. Finally, Thomas came along. The conductor raised his red flag and Thomas stopped. Everybody argued with Henry. "Look, it has stopped raining," said a passenger. "Yes, it has stopped raining, but it will rain again. And what will become of my green paint with red stripes?" Thomas coupled up to Henry and the coaches. Thomas tried and tried and tried. Thomas pushed and pulled and pushed and pulled, but Henry would not come out of the tunnel. He was too heavy. "If you will not move, then I will just have to take up the rails and brick you in this tunnel so you won't get out," said the fat controller. So the workmen got some wood from the brake coach, and the workmen built a wall in front of Henry, and Thomas took the coaches back to the platform. Henry stayed in the wall for days. One day, Gordon was pulling the big express. He was proud of being the only engine strong enough to pull the express. The express was full of very important people, like the fat controller, who's the manager of the railway. Gordon was trying to see how fast he could go. Gordon shot down the line, and he shot right past stations. "Hurry up, hurry up, hurry up," said Gordon. "Trickety-trock, said the coaches. In a minute, Gordon would see Henry bricked up in his tunnel. "Oh dear," moaned Henry. "Why did I ever complain about the rain spoiling my lovely green paint and red stripes? Will the fat controller ever forgive me? I am going to poop at Henry," said Gordon. Gordon was getting closer and closer until there was a big shh. Gordon went slower and slower until he came to a complete stop. "Oosh," said Gordon. "What is happening to me? I am getting weaker and weaker. It seems like your safety valve has burst," said Gordon's driver. "Oh dear, we were going so nicely. Why did I have to stop? And look, there's Henry laughing at me." The fat controller came to see Gordon. "Ugh, I've never liked these bigger engines," said the fat controller. "Always going wrong. Send another engine at once," he added. While the guard was finding another engine to help pull the big express, Gordon was parked into a siding. He had enough steam to move into it. Edward was the only engine available. "I'll go," he said. "Ha!" said Gordon. "That's no use. Edward can't push the train." Edward puffed and pushed and puffed and pushed, but he couldn't move the heavy coaches. "Ha! I say it, but I told you so, said Gordon. Why not give Henry a try? He added. Yes, said the Fat Controller. Will you help pull this train? Said the Fat Controller. Yes, please, said Henry. Finally, Henry got out of the tunnel. Ooh, I am stiff. Ooh, I am stiff, he said. When Henry came back, he felt much better. Henry was coupled up to the big express. Beep, beep, I'm ready, said Edward. Beep, beep, beep. So am I, said Henry, and they both puffed together. Edward and Henry puffed all the way to the last station. On the way back home, they took Gordon with them. Well, I guess this is a happy ending. Don't you think it is? Thomas is a tank engine with 6 small wheels, a short stumpy funnel, a short stumpy boiler, and a short stumpy dome. He is a fussy little engine, always pulling coaches about, ready for the big engines to take on long journeys. And when the big trains come in, he pulls the empty coaches out so the big engines can rest. Thomas thinks that no other engine works as hard as he does. Thomas loved to play tricks on the other engines, especially Gordon. Gordon was the biggest and proudest engine on the railway at this time. Wake up, lazy bones! You can't work as hard as me, peeped Thomas. One day, Gordon got back from an express run until... Wake up, lazy bones! You can't work as hard as me, yelled Thomas, and he ran away. Instead of going back to sleep, Gordon thought of a way to trick Thomas. The next morning, when Thomas woke up, he couldn't start. His fireman and driver tried everything they could. Thomas's fire went out and there was nearly enough steam, and it was almost time for the express. People were waiting to hop in their coaches. At last, Thomas started to move. Oh dear, warned Thomas. Hurry up, said Gordon. Hurry up yourself, said Thomas. Yes, said Gordon, I will hurry up. Right before the coaches stopped, Gordon reversed onto them. Come on in, get in quickly, said Gordon to the passengers. Thomas would usually push the trains to help them start, but today was different. The workmen would usually uncouple Thomas from the coaches, but today he wasn't uncoupled. Gordon's chance to play a trick on Thomas had come. You can't get away, you can't get away, laughed the coaches. Thomas was not feeling good. His axles ached and his wheels wobbled. I shall never be the same again, he thought. At last, the 2 engines and a derailed coach arrived at the station. Thomas felt very silly indeed. But Thomas was uncoupled from Gordon's train and he ran onto a turntable. Thomas ran onto a siding out of the way. Well, little Thomas, said Gordon, now you know what hard work means, don't you? After a few minutes, Thomas went on his journey back home. Thomas has learned his lesson indeed. One morning, Thomas grumbled into the station. I spend my time pushing and pulling coaches, getting them ready for you to take on big journeys, he said. The other engines just laughed. I wish I could pull passenger trains too, said Thomas. You're too impatient, said Gordon. You're sure to leave something behind, he added. Rubbish, said Thomas. I'll show you, said Thomas. That night, Thomas and Henry were in the sheds by themselves. Henry was ill. The workmen worked hard, but he just didn't get better. The next morning, Henry felt bad as last night. Henry usually pulled the first train. Thomas had to get his coaches ready. Henry is ill, thought Thomas. Perhaps I should take his train. Thomas ran away to find Henry's coaches. Come along, Thomas said to the coaches. There's plenty of time, the coaches responded. Thomas took the coaches to the platform, and he wanted to run around in front at once. But Thomas's driver said, "Don't be impatient." Thomas waited and waited for the people to come in to the coaches. The people got in, the guard and the station master walked up and down, the porter banged the doors, and still Henry did not come. Thomas got more and more excited. The Fat Controller came to see what was the matter. The guard and the station master told the Fat Controller about Henry. "Find another engine," he ordered. "There's only Thomas." "You'll have to do it, Thomas," said the Fat Controller. Thomas was excited. "Don't be impatient. Don't be impatient," said Thomas's driver. "Wait till everything is ready," said his driver again. But Thomas was just too impatient. What happened next? Nobody knows. Maybe the driver accidentally pulled the lever, or they forgot to couple Thomas to the train. But anyway, Thomas started to move. As Thomas passed the first signal box, men waved at him. "They must be waving because I'm pulling a passenger train," said Thomas. "Henry says it's hard to pull passenger coaches, but for me, it's very easy," he said to himself. "Hurry, hurry, hurry," he added. "People have never seen me pull a train before. It's nice for them to wave at me." And Thomas whistled back. Peep, peep. Then Thomas came across a signal at danger. "Bother," thought Thomas. "Why did I have to stop?" he said. "What a nuisance signals are," he added. Thomas blew an angry peep, peep on his whistle. Soon the signal man came out of the signal box. "Hello, Thomas," he said. "What are you doing here?" "Where are your coaches then?" said the signal man. Thomas looked behind. "Why, bless me," he said, "if we haven't left the coaches behind." At the station, the passengers were talking about how bad the railway was. But when the passengers saw how sad Thomas was, they quickly got in, and Thomas really pulled the train. Time passed, and soon, anytime the engines would see Thomas, they would say, "Look, there's Thomas, who wanted to pull a passenger train but forgot all about the coaches." Thomas used to grumble in the shed at night. "I'm tired of pushing coaches. I want to see the world." The others didn't take much notice for Thomas, who was a little engine with a long tongue. But one night, Edward came to the shed. Edward was a kind engine and felt sorry for Thomas. "I've got some trucks to take home tomorrow," he told him. "If you take them instead, I'll push coaches in the yard." "Thank you," said Thomas. So the next morning, they asked their drivers, and when they said yes, Thomas ran off happily to find some trucks. Now, trucks are silly and noisy. They talk loud and don't attend to what they are doing. They don't listen to their engine, and when he stops, they bump into each other screaming, "Oh, oh, oh, whatever is happening?" And I'm sorry to say, they play tricks on engines who are not used to them. Edward knew all about trucks. He warned Thomas to be careful, but he was too excited to listen. The shunter fastened the coupling, and when the signal dropped, Thomas was ready. Thomas was happy. "Come along," he puffed. "All right, don't fuss, all right, don't fuss," grumbled the trucks. They clattered through stations and rumbled over bridges. Thomas whistled, "Peep, peep," and they rushed through the tunnel in which Henry had been shut up in. Then they came to the top of Gordon's Hill. "Steady now, steady," warned the driver, and he shut off steam and began to put on the brakes. We're stopping," called Thomas. No," answered the trucks, and bumped into each other. Go on," and before his driver could stop them, they had pushed Thomas down the hill. Thomas was glad he got to the bottom of the hill. "Oh dear, what should I do?" They rattled through the station, and luckily the line was clear. They swerved into the goods yard. "Ooh!" groaned Thomas as his brakes held fast and he skidded along the rails. I must stop! And he shut his eyes tight. "Ah!" yelled Thomas. When he opened his eyes, he had saw that he just stopped in front of the bumpers, and there was watching him the Fat Controller. "What are you doing here, Thomas?" he asked sternly. "I've brought Edward's trucks," Thomas answered. "Why did you come so fast?" "I didn't mean to. I was pushed," said Thomas sadly. "Haven't you pulled trucks before?" "No." "Then you a lot to learn about trucks, little Thomas. They are silly things and must be kept in their place. After pushing them about here for a few weeks, you know almost as much as Edward. Then you'll be a really useful engine." Every day, the Fat Controller came to the station to catch his train, and he always said, "Hello" to Thomas. There were lots of different trucks in the yard. Different ones came in every day, and Thomas had to push and pull them into their right places. He worked hard. He knew now that he wasn't so clever as last time he had got. Besides, the fat director had been kind to him, and he wanted to learn all about trucks so as to be a really useful engine. But on a siding by themselves were some trucks that Thomas was told he mustn't touch. There was a small coach, some flat trucks, and two queer things his driver called cranes. "That's the breakdown train," said Thomas's driver. "When there's an accident, the workmen get into the coach and the engine takes them quickly to help the hurt people and to clear the men and mend the line. The cranes are for lifting heavy things like engines, coaches, and trucks." One day, Thomas was in the yard when he heard an engine whistling. "Help! Help!" And a goods train came rushing in way too fast. The engine, a new one called James, was frightened. His brake blocks were on fire, and smoke sparks streamed out on each side. "They're pushing me! They're pushing me!" he panted. On, laughed the trucks, and still whistling, "Help, help, help!" Poor James disappeared under a bridge. "I'd like to teach those trucks a lesson," said Thomas the Tank Engine. Presently, a bell rang in the signal box, and a man came running. "James is off the line! The breakdown train! Quickly!" he shouted. So Thomas was coupled on, the workmen jumped into their coach, and they went. Thomas worked his hardest. "Hurry, hurry, hurry," he puffed, and this time he wasn't pretending to be like Gordon. He really meant it. Bother those trucks and their tricks, Thomas thought. I hope poor James isn't hurt. They found James and the trucks at a bend in the line. The brake van and the last few trucks were on the rails, but the front ones were piled in a heap. James was in a field with a cow looking at him, and his driver and fireman were feeling him all over to see if he was hurt. "Never mind, James," they said. "It wasn't your fault. It was those wooden brakes they gave you. We always said they were no good." Thomas pushed the breakdown train alongside, and Thomas pulled the unhurt trucks out of the way. Oh dear, they groaned. Serves you right, puffed Thomas crossly. When the men put other trucks on the line, he pulled them away too. He was hard at work, puffing backwards and forwards all the afternoon. "This'll teach you a lesson, he told the trucks. Yes, it will, in a sad, groany, creaky sort of voice, said the trucks. They left the broken trucks and mended the line. Then, with two cranes, the breakdown train put James back on track. James tried to move, but he couldn't. So Thomas helped him back to the shed. The Fat Controller was waiting anxiously for them. "Well, Thomas," he said kindly, "I've heard all about it, and I'm pleased with you. You're a really useful engine. James shall have a proper brakes and a new coat of paint, and you shall have a branch line all to yourself." "Oh, sir," said Thomas happily. Now Thomas is happy as he can be. Thomas now has a branch line all to himself, and he puffs proudly backwards and forwards with 2 coaches all day. He is never lonely, 'cause there is always some engine to talk at the junction. Edward and Henry stop quite often and tell him the news. Gordon is always in a hurry and does not stop, but he never forgets to whistle to little Thomas, and Thomas always whistles peep peep in return. The end. James was a new engine who lived at a station at the other end of the line. He had 2 small wheels in front and 6 driving wheels behind. They weren't as big as Gordon's, and they weren't as small as Thomas's. "You're a special mixed traffic engine," the Fat Controller told him. "You'll be able to pull coaches or trucks quite easily. But trucks are not easy things to manage, and on his first day they pushed him down a hill into a field." James had been ill after the accident, but now he has a new shiny coat of paint. "You are to pull coaches today," said the Fat Controller. "Edward shall help you," he added. James and Edward went off together to find some coaches. "Be careful with the coaches, James," said Edward. "They don't like being bumped. Trucks are silly and noisy. They need to be bumped and taught to be behaved. But coaches get cross and will pay you out." Edward and James took the coaches to the platform and were both coupled up in front. The Fat Controller, the station master, and some little boys all came to admire James's shining rods and red paint. James was pleased. "I am a really splendid engine," he thought, and suddenly left off steam. Whee! The Fat Controller, the station master, and the guard all jumped, and a shower of water fell on the Fat Controller's nice new top hat. Just then, the guard's whistle blew, and James thought they had better go, so they went. Go on, he puffed to Edward. Don't push, puffed Edward, for he did not like starting quickly. Don't go so fast, grumbled the coaches, but James did not listen. He wanted to run away before the Fat Controller could call him back. He didn't even want to stop at the first station. Edward tried to stop James, but it was too hard. The two coaches were far beyond the platform already, and they had to go back to let the passengers get on. Lots of people came to look at James, as no one seemed to know about the Fat Controller's top hat. James felt happier. Presently, they saw Thomas. He came in with his two coaches, waiting for the passengers to get in. "Hello, James," said Thomas kindly. "Feeling better?" "That's right. Ah, that's my guard's whistle. I must go. Sorry, I can't stop. I don't know what the Fat Controller would do without me to run this branch line." And he puffed off importantly with his two coaches into a tunnel. Leaving the junction, James passed the field where he had his accident. The fence were mended and the cows were back again. James whistled, but they paid no attention. Edward and James clattered through Edward's station, and they started to climb Gordon's hill that he got stuck on. "It's ever so steep! It's ever so steep!" puffed James. I've done it before, puffed Edward. "It's steep, but we'll do it. It's steep, but we'll do it. It's steep, but we'll do it," said the two engines. They puffed together as they pulled the train up the long hill. They both had a long rest at the next station. Edward told James how Gordon had got stuck on the hill, and he had to push him up. James laughed so much that he got the hiccups and surprised an old lady in a black bonnet. She dropped all her parcels, and 3 porters, the station master, and the guard had to run after her, picking them up. James was quiet in the shed that night. He had enjoyed his day, but he was a little afraid of what the Fat Controller would say. The next morning, the Fat Controller spoke severely to James. "If you can't behave, I shall take away your red coat and have you painted blue." James did not like that at all, and he was very rough with the coaches as he brought them to the platform. Come along, he called rudely. All in good time, the coaches grumbled. "Don't talk, come on, don't talk, come on," answered James, with the coaches squealing and grumbling after him. He snorted into the station. James was cross that morning. The Fat Controller had spoken to him, the coaches had dawdled, and worst of all, he had to fetch his own coaches. Gordon never does, thought James, and he is only painted blue. A splendid red engine like me should never have to fetch his own coaches. And he puffed and snorted round to the front of the train and backed onto it with a rude bump. Ooh! Groaned the coaches. That was too bad. To make James even more cross, he had to take the coaches to a different platform where no one came near him as he stood there. The Fat Controller was in his office. The station master was at the other end of the train with the guard, and even the little boy stood a long way off. James felt lonely. I'll show them, he said to himself. They think Gordon is the only engine who can pull coaches. And as soon as the guards whistled, he started off with a tremendous jerk. Come on, come on, come on, he puffed, and the coaches squeaking. James and the coaches clattered over the points and onto the open points. Hurry, 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 puffed James. You're going too fast. You're going too fast, said the coaches. And indeed they were going so fast that they swayed from side to side. James just laughed and tried to go faster, but the coaches wouldn't let him. We're going to stop. We're going to stop, they said. And James found himself going slower and slower. What's the matter? James asked his driver. The brakes are hard on. Leak in the pipe, most likely. You've banged the coaches enough to make a leak in anything. The guard and the driver got down and looked at the brake pipes all along the train. At last, they found a hole where rough treatment had made a joint work loose. How shall we mend it? Said the guard. James's driver thought for a moment. We'll do it with newspaper and a leather bootlace. Well, where is the bootlace coming from? Asked the guard. We haven't one. Ask the passengers, said the driver. So the guard made all the passengers get out. Has anyone got a leather bootlace? He asked. Everybody said no, except one man in a bowler hat, whose name was Jeremiah Jobling, who tried to hide his feet. You have a leather bootlace there, I see, sir, said the guard. Please give it to me. I won't, said Jeremiah Jobling. Then, said the guard sternly, I'm afraid this train will just stop where it is. Then, all the passengers complained what a bad railway it was. But the guard climbed into his van, and the driver and fireman made James let off steam. So they all told Jeremiah Jobling he was a bad man instead. At last, he gave them his laces. The driver tied a pad of the newspapers tightly round the hole, and James was able to pull the train. But James was a sadder and wiser engine, and James took care never to bump coaches again. James did not see the Fat Controller for days. They left him all alone in the sheds and did not even allow him to go out and push coaches and trucks in the yard. Oh dear, he thought sadly. I'll never be allowed out anymore. I shall have to stay in the shed for always, and no one will ever see my red coat again. Oh dear, oh dear, James began to cry. Just then, the Fat Controller came into the sheds. I see you're sorry, James, he said. I hope now that you will be a really useful engine. You have given me a lot of trouble. People are laughing at my railway, and I do not like that at all. I'm very sorry, sir, said James. I will try hard to behave. That's a good engine, said the Fat Controller kindly. I want you to pull some trucks for me. Run along and find them. So James ran happily away. Here are your trucks, James, said Thomas. Have you got any bootlaces ready? He added. Thomas ran away laughing. Oh, said the trucks as James backed onto them rudely. Whatever is happening, they said. We want a proper engine, not a red monster. James took no notice and started off as soon as the guard was ready. Come along, he puffed. No, we won't, said the trucks. But James didn't care, and he pulled the screeching trucks sternly out of the yard. The trucks tried hard to make him give up, but he still kept on. Sometimes their brakes would slip on, and their axles would run hot. Each time they would have to stop and put the trouble right, and each time James would have to start again, determined not to let the trucks beat him. Give up! You can't pull us, called the trucks. I can pull you, and I will pull you. I can pull you, and I will pull you. I can pull you, and I will pull you, said James. And slowly but surely he pulled them along the line. At last, they reached Gordon's Hill. Look out for trouble, James, warned James's driver. We'll go fast and get them up before they know it. Don't let them stop you. So James went faster and faster, and soon they were halfway up the hill. I'm doing it, he panted. It was hard work. Will the top ever come? Thought James. But then there was a sudden jerk, and it all became easier. I've done it, said James. He puffed triumphantly. Hurrah, he thought. It's easy now, but his driver shut off steam. They've done it again, said James's driver. We've left our tail behind. The last 10 trucks were running backwards down the hill. The coupling had snapped, but the guard was brave. Very carefully and very cleverly, he made them stop. Then he got out and walked down the line with his red flag. That's why it was easy, said James as he backed down to the other trucks. What silly thing trucks are. There might have been an accident. Meanwhile, the guard stopped Edward, who was pulling 3 coaches. Shall I help you, James? Said Edward. No, thank you, answered James. I'll pull them myself. Good. Don't let them beat you. James slowly made it up the hill. I can do it! I can do it! I can do it! James cried. I can do it! Beep, 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 whistled Edward. You're doing well! You're doing well! He pulled and puffed as hard as he could. I've done it! I've done it! Said James, and he made it to the top of the hill and disappeared once he went down. James safely made it to the station, and he returned back home. Soon he saw Edward puff into the sheds, and there came out of Edward's cab Sir Topham Hatt. Hello, James, he said. Oh dear, thought James. What would the Fat Controller say? He asked himself sadly. But the Fat Controller was smiling. I was in Edward's train and saw everything, he said. You've made the most out of troublesome trucks on the line. Behave. After that, you deserve to keep your red coat. James was as happy as he could ever be. Sometimes Gordon and Henry slept in James's shed, and they would talk of nothing but bootlaces. James would talk about engines who got shut up in tunnels and stuck on hills, but they wouldn't listen and went talking and laughing. You talk too much, little James, Gordon would say. A fine, strong engine like me has something to talk about. I'm the only engine strong enough to pull the express. When I'm not there, they need 2 engines. Think of that! I've pulled expresses for years and have never once lost my way. I seem to know the line by instinct, said Gordon proudly. Every wise engine knows, of course, that the signalman works the points to make engines run on the right lines, but Gordon was so proud that he had forgotten about this. Wake up, James, said Gordon one morning. It's nearly time for the express. What are you doing, odd jobs? Well, we have to begin somewhere, don't we? Run along and get my coaches. Don't be late now, said Gordon. So James went off to fetch Gordon's coaches. James went along to get Gordon's coaches. They were now all shining with lovely new paint. He was careful not to bump them, and the coaches followed James smoothly into the station, singing happily. We're going away! We're going away! I wish I was with you, said James. I should love to pull the express and go flying along the line. He left them in the station and went back to the yard. Just as Gordon, with much noise and blowing steam, backed onto the train. The Fat Controller was on the train with other important people, and as soon as they heard the guard's whistle, Gordon started. Look at me now! Look at me now! And the goat he puffed, and the coaches glided after him out of the station. Poop, 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 poop! Goodbye, little James. See you tomorrow. James watched the train disappear round the curve, and then he went back to work. James shunted some trucks into their proper places, and he shunted goods trains into their proper places so big engines could take their goods trains. He also pushed coaches into the station. Just when he was being uncoupled from one of the goods trains he was getting ready, he heard a mournful, quiet, shush, 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 shush. It was Gordon, who was trying to slowly puff into the station without being noticed. Hello, Gordon. Is it tomorrow? Asked James. Gordon didn't answer. He just let off steam feebly. Did you lose your way, Gordon? Asked James again. No, it was lost for me, he answered crossly. I was switched off the main line and had to go on the loop. I had to go all around and back again. Perhaps it was instinct, said James brightly. Meanwhile, all the passengers rushed to the booking office so they could get their back. We want our money back! We want our money back! They yelled. Everybody was making a noise, but the Fat Controller climbed on a trolley and blew the guard's whistle so loudly that they all stopped to look at him. Then he promised them a new train at once. Gordon can't do it, he said. Will you do it for us, James? Yes, sir. I'll try, said James. So James was coupled on and everyone got in again. Do your best, James, said the Fat Controller. Just then, the guard's whistle blew, and the Fat Controller got into one of the coaches. Come along, James said to the coaches. You're pulling us well, you're pulling us well, you're pulling us well, sang the coaches. Hurry, 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 puffed James. Stations and bridges flashed by. The passengers leaned out the windows and cheered. Finally, they reached the terminal. Everybody said, "Well done," to James. Good job, James, said the Fat Controller. Would you like to pull the express sometimes? Yes, please, said James happily. The next morning, James found Gordon pushing trucks in the yard. I like some quiet work for a change, he said. I'm teaching these trucks a lesson and put them in their usual manners. And he gave his trucks a bump, making them scream. Ow! 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 James and Gordon are now good friends. James sometimes takes the express to give Gordon a rest. Gordon never talks about bootlaces, and they are both quite agreed on the subject of trucks.
Thomas and the Guard. Thomas the Tank Engine is very proud of his branch line. He thinks it's the most important part of the whole railway. He has 2 coaches. They're old and need new paint, but he loves them very much. He calls them Annie and Clarabelle. Annie can only take passengers, but Clarabelle can take passengers, luggage, and the guard. As they run backwards and forwards along the line, Thomas sings them little songs, and Annie and Clarabelle sing too. When Thomas starts from a station, he sings, "Shh, shh, shh, shh. Oh, come along, shh, shh, shh. We're rather late. Shh, shh, shh. Oh, come along, shh, shh, shh. We're rather late. Shh, shh, shh. Oh, come along, shh, shh, shh. We're rather late. Shh, shh, shh. Oh, come along, shh, shh, shh." And the coaches sing, "We're coming along, we're coming along, we're coming along, we're coming along." They don't mind what Thomas says to them, because they know that he's trying to please the fat controller. And they know, too, that if Thomas is cross, he's not cross with them. He's cross with the engines on the main line who've made him late. One day, they had to wait for Henry's train. It was late. Thomas was getting crosser and crosser. "How can I run my line properly if Henry's always late? He doesn't realize that the fat controller depends on me." And he whistled very impatiently. At last, Henry came along, and Thomas said, "Where have you been, lazy bones?"
Oh, don't be cross, Thomas, please. My system is out of order. No one understands my case. You don't know what I suffer.
"Oh, rubbish! You're too fat. You need exercise." Lots of people with piles of luggage got out of Henry's train, and they all climbed into Annie and Clarabelle. Thomas had to wait until they were ready. At last, the guard blew his whistle, and Thomas started off at once. The guard turned round to jump into his van, tripped over an old lady's umbrella, and fell flat on his face. By the time he'd picked himself up, Thomas, Annie, and Clarabelle were steaming out of the station. Thomas was in a hurry to get away. "Oh, come along! Oh, come along!" But Clarabelle didn't want to come along.
No. I've lost my nice guard. No. I've lost my nice guard.
Annie tried to tell Thomas, "We haven't a guard. We haven't a guard. We haven't a guard." But Thomas was hurrying. He wouldn't listen, and on he puffed. "Oh, come along! Oh, come along! Oh, come along!" Annie and Clarabelle tried to put on their brakes, but they couldn't without the guard, and they kept crying out,
"Where is our guard? Where is our guard?
"Where is our guard? Oh, where is our guard?
Thomas, please stop! Thomas, please stop!
Thomas, please stop! Thomas, please stop!" But Thomas didn't stop until they came to a signal, and the signal said, "Stop." Thomas was very cross, and he said to his driver, "Oh, bother that signal! What's the matter?" And Thomas's driver said, "Well, I don't know. The guard will tell us in a minute, Thomas." They waited and waited, but the guard didn't come. Thomas got even crosser. "Where is the guard?" Annie and Clarabelle knew, and they were crying,
We've left him behind. We've left him behind.
"Yes, we left him behind. We left him behind." The driver, the fireman, and the passengers looked, and there was the guard running as fast as he could along the line with his flags in one hand and his whistle in the other. Everybody cheered him. He was very hot, so he sat down and had a drink and told them all about it. Thomas was very sorry. I'm very sorry, Mr. Guard." "Oh, it wasn't your fault, Thomas. It was an old lady's umbrella. Look, the signal's down. Let's make up for lost time. Come on." Annie and Clarabelle were so pleased to have their guard again that they sang to Thomas,
As fast as you like. As fast as you like.
"Yes, as fast as you like, as fast as you like." And Thomas went as fast as he could. And they reached the end of the line quicker than ever before. Thomas goes fishing. Thomas's branch line has a station by a river. As he rumbles over the bridge, he often sees people fishing. Sometimes they stand quietly by their lines. Sometimes they actually jerk fish out of the water. Thomas often wanted to stay and watch, but his driver said, "No, Thomas. What would the fat controller say if we were late? Thomas thought it would be lovely to stop by the river. "I should like to go fishing." Every time he met another engine, he would say, "I should like to go fishing." They all answered, "Ha! Engines don't go fishing, sir." But that made Thomas impatient, and he would say, "Ha! Silly stick in the muds." Thomas generally had to take in water at the station by the river. One day he stopped as usual, and his fireman put the pipe from the water tower into his tank. Then he turned the tap on, but it was out of order and no water came. Thomas said to his driver, "Oh, bother! Oh, bother! Oh, I am thirsty." "Oh, never mind, Thomas. We'll get some water from the river." They found a bucket and some rope and went to the bridge. Then the driver let the bucket down to the water. The bucket was old and had 5 holes in it, so they had to fill it, pull it up, and empty it into Thomas's tank as quickly as they could. Thomas's fireman sang, "There's a hole in my bucket, dear Liza, dear Liza." But the driver said, "Never mind about Liza. You empty that bucket before you spill the water over me. Go on." At last they finished, and Thomas started off. "Shh, shh, that's good. Shh, shh, that's good. Shh, shh, that's good. Shh, shh, that's good. Shh, shh, that's good." And Annie and Clarabelle ran happily behind.
That's very much better. That's very much better.
"That's very much better. That's very much better." They puffed along the valley and were in the tunnel when Thomas began to feel a pain in his boiler, while steam hissed from his safety valve in an alarming way. Thomas's driver said, "Oh, there's too much steam." And the fireman opened the tap in the feed pipe to let more water into the boiler, but none came. Thomas groaned. Oh dear, I'm going to burst. I'm going to burst. They damped down his fire and struggled on, but Thomas was in a terrible state. "I've got such a pain. I've got such a pain." Just outside the last station, they stopped, uncoupled Annie and Clarabel, and ran Thomas, who was still hissing fit to burst, onto a siding right out of the way. Then, while the guard telephoned for an engine inspector, and the fireman was putting out the fire, the driver wrote notices in large letters, which he hung on Thomas in front and behind. "Danger. Keep away." Soon the inspector and the fat controller arrived.
"Oh, cheer up, Thomas. We'll soon put you right, yes."
The driver told them what had happened, and the inspector said,
Oh, so the feed pipe is blocked, eh? Well, I'll just look in the tanks."
He climbed up and peered in. Then he came down and said to the fat controller,
Excuse me, sir, but look in the tank, will you, and tell me what you can see?" "Oh, yes, certainly, Inspector. Certainly."
He clambered up, looked in, and nearly fell off in surprise.
Well, I never, Inspector. Can you see fish? Goodness gracious me. How did the fish get in there, driver?
Thomas's driver scratched his head.
We must have fished them from the river."
And he told them about the bucket. The fat controller laughed.
Well, Thomas, oh dear, so you and your driver have been fishing, eh? But fish don't suit you, do they? No, we must get them out.
So the driver and the fireman fetched rods and nets, and they all took turns at fishing in Thomas's tank. When they'd caught all the fish, the station master gave them some potatoes. The driver borrowed a frying pan, while the fireman made a fire beside the line and did the cooking. Then they all had a lovely picnic supper of fish and chips. The fat controller finished first.
Yes. That was good. Very good indeed. But fish don't suit you, Thomas, do they? So you mustn't do it again.
And Thomas said, "No, sir, I won't. Engines don't go fishing. It's too uncomfortable." Thomas, Terence, and the Snow. Autumn was changing the leaves from green to brown. The fields were changing too, from yellow stubble to brown earth. As Thomas puffed along, he heard a tractor at work. One day, stopping for a signal, he saw the tractor close by. The tractor looked over the fence at Thomas and said,
"Hello, I'm Terence. I'm ploughing."
"I'm Thomas. I'm pulling a train." "Oh, what ugly wheels you've got."
"They're not ugly. They're caterpillar tracks. I can go anywhere with my tracks. I don't need rails."
"I don't want to go anywhere. I like my rails, thank you." and off went Thomas. Winter came, and with it dark heavy clouds full of snow. Thomas's driver said, "I don't like it. A heavy fall is coming. I hope it doesn't stop us." But Thomas saw that the snow was melting on the rails, and he said, "Oh, this is soft stuff. There's nothing to it." And he puffed on, feeling cold but confident. They finished their journey safely, but the country was covered, and the rails were two dark lines standing out in the white snow. The driver said, "You'll need your snowplough for the next journey, Thomas." "Yes." "Snowplough? Oh, snowplough? Whoa. Snow is silly soft stuff. It won't stop me." "Now, just you listen to me, young Thomas. We are going to fix your snowplough on, and I want no nonsense, please." The snowplough was heavy and uncomfortable, and made Thomas cross. He shook it and he banged it, and when they got back it was so damaged that the driver had to take it off. "You're a very naughty engine, Thomas." And he shut the shed door for the night. Next morning both driver and fireman came early and worked hard to mend the snowplough, but they couldn't make it fit properly. It was time for the first train. Thomas was pleased. "I shan't have to wear it. I shan't have to wear it. I didn't need that stupid old thing yesterday, and I shan't need it today. Snow can't stop me." And he rushed off into the tunnel, thinking how clever he was. At the other end he saw a heap of snow fallen from the sides of the cutting. "Ha ha ha! Silly old snow! Silly old snow! Look out! I'm coming! I'm coming! Ooh, 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 ooh. Oh, cinders and ashes! I'm stuck!" And he was. The driver said, "Back, Thomas, back!" Thomas tried, but his wheels spun and he couldn't move. More snow fell and piled up around him. The guard went back for help, while the driver, fireman and passengers tried to dig the snow away. But as fast as they dug, more snow slipped down, until Thomas was nearly buried. Thomas was very upset. "Oh, my wheel and coupling rods! I shall have to stop here till I'm frozen. What a silly little engine I am." And Thomas began to cry. And a bus came and took all his passengers away, and Thomas felt very lonely and very sad when he heard a noise in the tunnel. Yes, it was Terence, and he came chugging out of the tunnel.
"Hello, Thomas. No, don't worry. I'll soon get you out."
"I'll try to be." And Thomas puffed off home.